Why is it important for an agent to do a buyer consultation with their clients?
I think to set expectations, find out what their wants, their needs are, also to even see if it's a realistic and viable client.
Absolutely. It's important that you qualify the client, but it's also really important that you establish yourself as the professional that they want to work with, and that they're willing to listen to you because you have a lot of information to give them. And if they don't trust you or they're not confident in you, then that basically all the things that you're going to say, may go right over their head. So that's one other good reason. What about you, Mike?
Well, it gives you a chance to establish yourself as the educated professional and knowledgeable advisor instead of a salesperson.
Right.
And like Daisy said, setting expectations, because the client's going to have a set of expectations and you don't know what they are. So if you don't sit down with them and get those expectations on the table, you're never going to be able to meet them. And those expectations may be way out of line. They may be saying, I want to see 100 homes, okay? So you've got to get those expectations out where you can see them and get them so that you're both on the same page in what you're going to go through this process in.
And educate.
Right.
The more data you show up with, the more, the differences between their MLS sheets and our MLS sheet with the confidential remarks, and labeling the homes and explaining that, it's the process of, there's, 15,000 homes on the San Diego MLS. There's, absolutely no way you can show them all. So we really need to be very specific, and we need to have a GPS. And we also, I also explain to them the differences in loan programs, and just letting them know that, sometimes, there's terms and conditions that are on my MLS sheets that they can't see, that if the home is maybe, a VA or
Right.
an FHA, and 80% of the homes that they're looking at in that area may not qualify for that type of financing, because, a lot of buyers think, oh, I'm going to buy a home, and they don't know the process. They have no clue of the behind the scenes, and I find that sitting down and just, digging in and letting them know, what's going on in the market, showing them the data, writing down their wants and needs really makes the home search process a lot more enjoyable, and a lot more fun for them. And most definitely. So.
Well, going back to setting your expectations and figuring out their wants and needs, a lot of times we've got to realize they're on different websites, not just Zip. And, they're looking at what homes sold for. And sometimes some of those websites pick up like the foreclosure price or the sale price. So that guy may be looking at something, and his price expectation may be $265,000, $285,000. And when you sit down with them and you show them the MLS data that says that the home they can buy with a VA loan, the first home in that area that they're going to be looking at is $325,000, then you have a chance to change that from a very frustrated, disappointed buyer to a realistic buyer.
Right. Well, not only that, but you don't want to be a tour guide.
Right.
So, I've had a lot of, clients that will, just click the schedule a visit button and want to show up at the house, and we've not sat down and discussed the market or anything, and, they won't come in and sit down with me, but, I try to tell them, like I said, I say this all the time, it's not about what you say, it's how you say it. So I kind of say to them on the phone, it's a lot like going to your doctor. You hurt, but you wouldn't go into your doctor and go, I hurt, you figure it out, and not tell them, specific points and, of what's going on with you. So, the other thing that I want to do at buyer consultation is establish two things. Number one, the difference between a viable property and a non-viable property. Mm-hmm. And I want them to understand how to, narrow the homes down by labeling them. So I'll say, Mr. Buyer, here's how we are going to narrow down your search. As we're touring the homes, we are going to be labeling homes on a scale of 1 to 10. 10 being, oh my God, I love this home, it's my dream home, which, by the way, never exists, not even if you build it. Number 1, and 1 being, no way, you could never get me into that home, not even if you paid me to live there. And if we find a 7 or an 8, we'll explore as to what would make it a 9. If you tell me it's a 9, we will write an offer on that home. But if you tell me it's a 7 or an 8, I'll say, well, what would make it a 9? And if you tell me it's granite countertops, well, we might upgrade that home to a 9. But if you tell me, well, I'm noise sensitive, Daisy, and, it sits on the freeway, well, I know you would never even consider living in that home.
Absolutely.
And then again, I want them to I want them to know that I am, I'm here to help them, and that there's a right way and a wrong way to buy a home. And, you know, by labeling those homes on a scale of 1 to 10, I mean, it really cuts out the guesswork, because a lot of agents don't like to ask, do you want to write an offer on this home? You know, or if they, you know, after, you know, a certain amount of home tours, if they keep telling me they're 7s, well, I didn't do something right. I got to go back to the drawing board and find out what it is that will make, you know, what else is it that the homes don't have? Are they unrealistic? Do they need to, you know, redefine their, you know, their wants versus their needs? You know, what objection or
digging a little
obstacle?
deeper to find out what information you couldn't pull from them in the initial consultation. I think it's really important, all that information that you're giving to the clients, the first standard that you have to set is basically trust. You have to earn their trust so that when you're giving them this information that they're actually willing to listen to you. A lot of times, you know, if you can blurt out as much information as you want, but if you don't set yourself as the professional who actually knows what they're talking about, it just kind of goes in one ear and out the other. So building that trust, earning their respect, and then explaining to them why they want you to represent them is kind of the first priority. And you build that rapport before you get to the buyer consultation, hopefully, so that you can get that appointment. Once you get that appointment, that's your opportunity basically to advance their understanding of the market. And like Daisy said, it's your opportunity to qualify them to make sure that they're a viable client that you want to basically invest your time in and make sure that they understand the needs of the market, the particular marketplace that they're looking in. And Daisy brought up a really good point to make sure that you have supporting evidence so that you can say, you know, these, you know, Mike does that too. This is basically what it's going to take to get you into a home. Maybe homes are selling average days on the market. Maybe it's taking this many offers. It just really depends upon the actual market that you're looking in. And this is kind of what's going on, and I'm providing this for you, and you know, get the conversation going so that they ask questions and they're engaging you to allow them to kind of know what it is that they need to keep in mind when they're looking at homes.
Mike has a great saying that he says to clients. It's something along the line of, all my time is donated.
I work for free until we actually close a home.
Right.
So, you know, I need to make sure I'm investing my time wisely also.
Right.
And you know, the part about the labeling the homes, not only does it get you past the thing of going, you know, will you write an offer on this house?
Right.
Because you've set up the expectation that you're going to write an offer on that house. And also, not everything is going to come out in the buyer consultation. In using that labeling process, whether it's A, B, C, D, or, you know, do you like this one best or this one best? I like this one best. Okay, you throw that in the trunk, you know. What happens is that, as you said, if we're all getting 6 or 7 and none of them are rated high, or you're getting 9s and they're not ready to write an offer, there's an objection that didn't come out in the buyer consultation, and it gives you neutral language to come back without emotion and say, let's sit down and talk about this. You know, something's happening that we didn't discover, okay? Without getting into an emotional, you know, situation where you got a buyer that's dug in an ego position.
Right, well, the other, hammering on, or piggybacking on that, you also need to know what type of personality type they are as well, because if you have, you know, an analytical personality and you don't give them the data that they need, you know, you're not going to build trust, you're not going to build rapport, you know, and it's not going to end up well, you know. And again, it's not about what you say, it's how you say it too. So, you know, a lot of the analytical personalities, you know, you can say anything all day long, but if you put stuff in writing in there, you know, on the table, you know, they'll analyze it and they'll definitely trust you.
But conversely, if you find out they're an amiable personality, then you know that you're going to have to close harder than you would if they were a driver personality.
Right.
You know, because that type of personality is everything's okay, you know, so you know, things are fine, you know, I don't really need to buy this house kind of thing. And so you need to bring them back to why they wanted to buy a house and why they needed to buy a house. And you got that out during the buyer consultation.
Right.
So the buyer consultation really gives you a set of language and a set of dialogue that you can keep coming back to during the home buying process to bring them back where you were sitting down in neutral territory and they weren't in the home making a decision. So it really takes them back to a calmer place, and that helps a lot in getting them past some of the objections.
Right, and they always ask 3 questions. I always ask 3 questions at buyer consultation. Number 1 is, you know, how soon are you looking to be settled into your new home?
Not buying a home.
Not buying, settled, because, you know, again, no one wants to be sold, and you don't want to sell anyone anyway. You want clients for life. So, you know, you need to establish that at the buyer consultation that, look, I am here to help you, not push you. I want to help you into a new home. So how soon are you looking to be settled? You know, and then obviously follow it up with why. The second question I always ask is, how long have you been looking? You know, if they tell you that they've been looking for, you know, 2 days, you know, they may, and their time frame, you know, really isn't for another 6 months, you know, they may not be ready to jump in the car and look at homes right now. And then again, obviously, why? And then I'll ask them, you know, if we found your home tomorrow, what would you do? You know, if they tell me that they would, you know, they would jump right on it, then that's probably a very motivated individual.
Yeah.
But if they tell me that, oh, we have a home to sell, and, you know, well, that's a whole different ballgame. Or if they, I've even had it happen where they said, well, we don't know, we just have filed bankruptcy 2 days ago. You know, where if I didn't do a buyer consultation, you would have known that, and you would have been out, you know, being a tour guide, you know, showing all these homes, and then you get to the table and, you know, you don't have a viable client.
Right. Those are 3 really, really important questions. Another important question, I think, is how many homes do you expect to see before you write an offer, before you find a home? And that will give you a really good indication of their expectations.
And then I follow that exact question up with the average home buyer sees between 8 and 12 before they begin writing offers, so that I set that expectation. You know, and then I also ask them, I know this is a little into their future, but if they're, you know, a newlywed couple, I'll ask them, you know, is there any, you know, who else besides themselves going to be living in the home?
Right.
Do they plan on having any children? And, you know, I let them know I'm not trying to be rude, but, you know, if they're looking at 1 bedrooms and she's sitting there pregnant and I didn't know about it, you know, that home may not be a good fit.
Right.
So we want to find, you know, again, we want clients for life, you know.
What are some other good questions that you always ask at your buyer consultation?
Well, before we get into that, 2 things. One, I think you're trying to explore, and so the questions are based around 2 things. One is that you're trying to find out, you know, Daisy had mentioned a viable property, but the viable buyer is somebody that, with the type of financing that they have, whether it's cash, VA, FHA, or whatever, can buy the type of home they're looking for in the area they're looking in.
Absolutely.
Okay. And so, because you may have a cash buyer that's got $250,000, but they're looking for a single-family detached home in East Eucalyptus, they're $150,000 short.
Right.
You know, so one of the things you have to do is get that formula out there, and if you can't convince them to either change the kind of financing, or change the kind of home they're looking for, or change the area they're looking for, then you know that can's never going to be in a transaction. Okay. So part of the questioning that I do is exploring that. Okay. You know, in tying it back to that formula. What kind of financing, what kind of home, what kind of area, okay? And then when you provided them with the kind of data that you got, okay, then you can guide them in the direction where they can be a successful buyer, okay?
Absolutely.
And, you know, the other thing is that, you know, Daisy had mentioned personality types. One of the things you cannot do on a phone is see body language. And 90% of our communication is not verbal. So when you're sitting there across from them asking these questions, you can see the answer, and you can also see where the husband's going, oh yeah, and the wife's in the background going, oh yeah.
And what do they need from you by that body language, you know?
They need you to see there's a disconnect and bring those 2 together, you know? And you can't do that on the phone.
Right.
You can't see that, you can't hear that, you can't see the other.
Normally you don't get both of them on the phone anyways. You
No.
get one side of the conversation.
So.
Yeah, and you never know. I mean, one of them may be behind the computer just clicking the schedule a visit button, and you spend all your time out in the field showing the home to one of them, and then she finds a home, or he finds a home, or whomever finds a home that they like, and, you know, and then the, you know, significant other or the spouse vetoes it, you know, and you just want to make sure everybody
find out
has
who thinks they're the decision maker and
Right.
who is the
Yeah.
decision maker.
So that's a really good
So is it important to have both of them at the meeting?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Absolutely, yeah.
And then it's also just good to ask, in some cultures, they may have other family members that
Who
will be
else?
involved
Yeah.
in the decision making, whether it's financially or maybe they're going to be living with them. So it's always important to bring that question to the table. Who are the decision makers?
Yeah.
Making sure that you understand.